So, as you can tell, I'm not Kris. I'm his wife, Jamila, and I'm going to be hosting the podcast today, asking him a series of questions about 2019 and looking through to the future. So, Bub, how you feeling?
Yeah, well, I've had a drink for the first time in a long time. I think with the exception of Vegas, I've drank probably about 1 unit of alcohol in the last 2.5 years. St. Lucia, I did have a drink.
Yeah, and Antigua last year.
Okay, so that's a good point. That sounds really bad, but when that's spread out over 2 years, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's spread out over 2 years, yeah.
But I am drinking some snowballs because it is Christmas and that's what real men drink at Christmas. They drink snowballs. So I'm nervous, I guess, because I've never been on this side of it.
Yeah, it must be weird for you. Because usually you're the one running the show and you kind of steer things back in the right direction. And tonight is my turn.
Well, the one positive I know for sure when I've got you with me on a podcast is I'm not going to get called Karl the whole way through, which is a nice change.
Do you know what? I might just do it just to see, just to continue that tradition.
If our marriage certificate can be shredded. No, I'm looking forward to it. One thing that's going to be different, I already know, is when you're asking people questions, you have to be thinking of the next thing you're going to say and you don't really know where they're going to go. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I don't have that responsibility now.
That's true. You are relinquished from responsibility completely.
Have fun with that.
Okay, so first of all, 2019 has been quite a year. Mm-hmm. Quite a year personally, quite a year professionally. So talk me through the biggest change of 2019.
I think... that's a big question to start off with. I think the biggest change for me as a person, I've towards the end of this year especially, I think it's time I started to put a little bit more of a sense of importance on mental health, something that I've neglected for quite a while and something that's been a problem for me for quite a while. I think moving forwards, I don't think no matter how good anything else in my life is going, if you don't take care of yourself, if you're constantly sort of running away from taking care of yourself, it will catch up with you. I think it's, I remember my dad always saying to me, you can go like 3 days without sleep and then you'll sleep for 3 days. You can't actually get away from it. So it's just going to be a case of kind of catching up. I've got a couple months off now to kind of focus on mental health and trying to sort of lift my spirits a little bit and get myself ready.
So you think that for sort of like the last 12 months or at least the last 10, 11, it's been kind of put on the back burner?
Oh, I think for the last 7 years, maybe longer. I think there's been what would probably to most people be deemed as like small things that have happened since I started photography that I've just kind of figured if I just don't look at them, they don't exist and you just keep moving forwards. I did a YouTube video last year and it's not actually up on my YouTube at the moment at all, but talking about like my worst experience in photography, which was when I was in Finland and I went through all the problems I went through there. And since the video is not up, I'll just explain the premise. So I was in Finland, very, very new at photography. And I was photographing a wedding in the Arctic Circle. So it's like right up there, not much light, -30. And I had the beginnings of what is now a recurring condition called uveitis, which means that my immune system basically thinks my eye is like a foreign object and tries to like squish it. And it's very painful, very annoying. And had a great deal of problems with it while I was in Finland. But I think it was on, I can't remember exactly, to be honest with you, this is all a bit of a haze from that period. But on like the second or third day, I think it was the second day I was there, I get a message from you telling me that my auntie had died, someone who I was very close to. And basically there's no flights back. I've got a wedding to photograph still. I've got to get through the next 5 days with no one there that I really knew, trying to put up with the pain, which fortunately Finland has very lax laws on pain control.
It certainly does.
So I could get hold of enormous quantities of very large pills, and that kind of literally I wouldn't have survived the trip if it wasn't for that. And then I had to come back and have a needle stuck in my eye and then deal with the funeral and so on. I went through all of that. Excuse me. And following on from that, I was obviously very, very low mentally on top of having all of the physical issues. And I cancelled a batch of essentially like free shoots that I was going to do with various models. I kept my commitments with all of the actual work I had, but the free stuff had to go.
Yeah.
And two of the models I was supposed to work with in the circles that you find these people started sort of publicly bemoaning that I had made up my physical condition and I had made up my auntie dying as a means to get out of photographing them. And I think it's one thing to kind of think that. And I can understand for sure that there are people that do make really crap excuses and they do tend to throw grandparents and things like that, in front of the bus to kind of have an excuse to not do something.
Yeah.
But for me, reading some of that was just horrible. And it told me a lot about the human beings that are generally sought after for being beautiful, maybe aren't always beautiful people.
That's actually quite a good way of putting it.
So yeah, I mean, that still I haven't processed properly. I haven't processed what I went through with, various family members, your family members and so on. So the personal stuff has just caught up to me and it's a good time now, I think. The business is relatively stable as much as some people don't want it to be. And it's a good time now for me to kind of focus on getting myself right. And then we take the next step with the business.
Yeah, I think it's always good to take that break from anything you do, whether it be, whether it's something in your profession or something that you do personally, or whether it's people that you're around. It's always good to have that break. I think you need it to recuperate, to re-energize, and to just kind of rethink a few things and, reflect.
Yeah, I mean, I've offset weddings with portraiture and portraiture with weddings. So when one ticked me off, I could go on to the other one and kind of, when you're doing it for a job, you don't have a choice. You can't sort of be like, well, I'm not really feeling weddings today, so I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
So I tend to offset one with the other. But that tends to only chase the problem. It doesn't eliminate the problem. So
kind of masks it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just, I'm someone who I hate turning stuff down. Always have done. I've always felt like I'm letting people down if I turn stuff down. I also feel like I'm going to miss out. So to take a break and kind of let myself feel that way, but realize that that's not the most important thing in the world right now is probably the best thing.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the more interesting answer for most people would just be me saying that the switch to Fuji is the most important thing that's happened this year, but it's not. It's factored very, very small in the grand scheme of things. But
so, I mean, so we can get onto the Fuji stuff in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what professionally has been the biggest change for you then? Because even though I am your wife, I don't really know. And
well, you don't ask a lot of questions, to be fair. You just get asked a lot of questions. So
I am quite a quiet introvert, really.
What's been the biggest change? I think, I don't know.
I mean, could it be something like the editing process? Could it be how you approach weddings? Could it be how you deal with particular clients, modeling side of things? I mean, this year you've been photographing men predominantly. I think the only time you've really photographed women have been
workshops.
Yeah.
When agencies have forced me to.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So, I mean, that's quite a drastic change.
That's
because,
a good point. Yeah. Okay. So I did just write a blog about the fact that in 2020, I'll be switching all my personal work over to just portraiture of men, fashion shots of men and whatnot. I mean, to be honest with you, the blog, which was sort of scanned over by Charlotte, who did the first podcast, so that it read like it was a coherent piece of writing, not like it was just me hitting my head against the keyboard. Probably explains it better than I can right now, but essentially, I'm very fatigued with, to be completely honest, working with female models. I'm very fatigued with it. And it's not all, nothing is all. It's not Stalin. It's not everything is everything. It's, you can let bad experiences take large portions of your attention and ignore a lot of the good experiences, which could be the majority. But the fact is that I think that female based sort of portraiture, fashion work and so on is just so hypersexualized. I find it tiring. And I'm sure there's a joke in there, but to be completely honest with you, I just find it tiring. I find it irritating having to unfollow accounts of photographers that I liked because they're doing like more and more and more and more like what I would just call softcore porn.
Yeah.
And it's like you used to do like cool portraits and now you're just chasing likes and male attention and whatnot.
So do you think the increase in that and the change, do you think it's just been because attention?
No, I don't think so. I think
I
think followers on social media and stuff is a big part, but another major part is this fake revolution that we're going through with women, where this idea of like women do exactly what men want them to do, and I mean like the worst kinds of men. Women do exactly what men want them to do, but as long as the women feel like they're doing it for themselves, then it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of pitting women against women to get women to do stuff. And I think that there are people falling for that. I just think generally speaking, I think photography is a bit of an arms race. It's just who can, you don't go back. Do you know what I mean? Generally speaking, serial killers don't start stealing gum.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean? They
Yeah.
don't stop killing and start stealing gum. You escalate. I think we've always talked about human behavior always escalates.
Yeah.
And I just think that with the hypersexualized nature of the majority of female-based portraiture, I don't really have a dog in that fight. I don't find it interesting. And on top of that, I think like makeup trends for women, especially some of what I see with weddings and some of what is being encouraged by other women or makeup artists or whatnot, it's just so over the top. I think we're right back at the 80s, the big hair, the shoulder pads. I think we've got our own version of that now with contour and highlighter and injecting ourselves in every orifice and every part of our body to make it look bigger and more cartoon-like, and no one looks like a person anymore. And then on top of that, you've got the nature of that brand of people also have access on their phones to incredibly robust editing for selfies and whatnot. So
that's definitely one of the biggest problems, that because camera phones now are so good, the apps that are programmed for phones are also so good. So you can get professional photography programs on your phone now as apps.
Mm-hmm.
And people now are so used to editing themselves in a very particular style that when they see their face taken by somebody else, they don't see what they want to see.
Yeah.
What they see is almost a fake version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. People are caricatures now. It's across the board. People's politics, they're caricatures. They we live in a generation of people carrying around. Can you imagine seriously explaining the premise of a mobile phone, a smartphone, to someone 100 years ago? You're carrying around God in your pocket. It can answer any question you've got, and yet everyone's walking around misinformed. People are only reading a quarter of a paragraph. It's just the nature of the way people are now. Is we are caricatures. We need to constantly tell people about ourselves. We need to constantly control narratives, and I think part of that comes down to self-image. People want to constantly be seen a certain way, and my biggest issue with it, if I'm completely honest, and this is incredibly un-PC of me to say, but my biggest issue is the witch hunt that there is a male-enforced idea of beauty standards for women.
Yeah.
I have never in my lifetime ever heard a male ever, a straight male for definite, ever bring up, yeah, I like her, but I just wish she had more collagen in her lips. It's not, this stuff is just not conversations that are happening. It's just, there was a comedian I saw who said there's not a lot of catcalling builders working in the higher echelons of Vogue, deciding what goes on the cover of Vogue. You know, that tends to be non-straight males. Is a cliche, but it tends to be non-straight males, tends to be women, people in the fashion industry, maybe straight males, but they're definitely not like builders off a building site who are the people getting blamed for these supposed enforced beauty standards that women have to adhere to.
Well, I mean, I'm a member of the women's club, and I don't have any collagen in me or anything like that. I despise all that kind of stuff anyway. But as a card carrying woman, even as a teenager, I would read the occasional like fashion magazine or whatever. And the articles in there were always written by women. There wasn't a single male name against any of those articles. The editor of most of those magazines, I can't say for now because I don't touch any of them, but when I was growing up, like Glamour and stuff like that, it was all written by women. The photographers for the photos may have been men, but I never really paid any attention to it. But definitely the articles were all written by women. It was women telling us women how we should look, what should we do to improve ourselves, what the man thinks is sexy, and what can we do to get there.
Yeah, without any consultation of men. What I'd always say is there was a point where it was being said that like the covers of you know, Vogue or Harper's Bazaar or whatever were being picked on the basis of reinforcing a male stereotype of what a woman should look like. I hate to break it to anybody that's got an IQ above their shoe size, but men generally will settle.
Yeah.
I know disgusting pig guys who have, you know, no self-standards, but will talk about what they expect a woman to like, or they'll pick on the floor of another woman. That's just an asshole. That's not representative of an entire group of people. And you don't find often guys like that are particularly well received in conversation with other men. So this idea that we kind of get together in our secret meetings and, you know, we decide to pretend to like something so that women...
You're not doing that?
We're not doing that, no. I think generally speaking, it's just very fatiguing. I'm very tired of the constant need to reinforce a stereotype that I don't believe is a real stereotype.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stereotypes about men that are absolutely true. I mean, the in money or out the other stereotype about men is absolutely true. It can be more true of me.
You're not that bad.
No, but it's an absolutely true stereotype that men will probably need to be told something like 3 times to get it. There's a reason in a lot of cases that stereotypes exist, unfortunately.
There's always some truth to stereotypes. Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is always, not always some truth to all stereotypes, but there is always truth to some.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's not all stereotypes that are true, but the ones that are true, it's not like... Okay, so it's not like you can break down an entire subset of people by one characteristic, but it's also ridiculous to then turn around and say that we're not going to say this entire group of people are a certain way because that would be considered, you know, racist or sexist or xenophobic or whatever, but then turn around and say, but 50% of the world's population is giving the other 50% an unreal standard to live up to. It's just not true. There's enough of blaming each other, enough of being uncivil with each other. The lack of civil discourse is disgusting. The constant need to vilify the other person, the constant need to justify being horrible to each other is tiring. And I just find at the moment that I think possibly one of the biggest issues as well is Instagram. And I don't know what's going to happen when Instagram changes the rules over and make it so that you can't see the likes, because then all of a sudden people aren't going to have a metric by which to measure their proverbial with against everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to go back to the actual content of what you're putting out, not, you know, well, it's crap, but it can't be crap because 100,000 people clicked like.
Yeah.
Of which, 60,000 are the same people that are causing elections to be skewed because they're Russian bots or whatever. I just think that everything about the female side of fashion right now is very volatile. And then add on to that I'm just not a particularly big fan of the current fashion trends. I don't think they should change for me. I don't have much interest in what is currently a prerequisite for photographing a lot of women, which is the heavy contour, the completely ridiculous, like cartoonish levels of plastic surgery that are being done to younger and younger people, and the editing. That, to me, that's where it goes.
Yeah. So what is it when you're photographing male models? What is it that you like? Because you've done loads of male model shoots. You've even gone back on past male model shoots. You've done some re-edits and you've put them out. What is it that you going, oh yeah, no, what's basically, but what is it about these images that's making you want to continue to photograph male models?
I think that from a technical point of view, I get to scratch the same itch with a camera. I get to use the camera in the same way. I get to approach the technicalities of the shoot in the same way. I do find that photographing men, there's a lot more latitude for expression. Like you can kind of proverbially, not literally, like, figuratively push people a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Try and get different expressions. You can have a bit more back and forth without worrying about how the dynamic looks, whether or not you're punching down, so to speak, or punching up.
Yeah.
I find you're more on the level.
Yeah.
When you photograph men, or when I photograph men, sorry. I would also say that the editing process is unbelievably easy, but enjoyable, easy, not just fly through it without thinking. It's actually enjoyable, easy.
What about like the styling of the shoots? Because you have a particular style to your images anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you approach that with male models? And, what is it about the styling with them that you really like?
I think if I'd have been doing this 2 years ago, it would have been different. It would have been a lot harder because 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, I was very focused on that kind of like floaty, lacy, girl in the field.
Yeah.
And that's hard to translate across. It's a hard thing to translate to a masculine image.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas since I sort of found Agatha Serge, Peter Lindbergh and a few others, and by find them, I mean just like I became aware of them. They were already huge. But since I found more raw, sort of strong portraits that weren't reliant on being pretty, not that they weren't pretty, but they weren't reliant on it, I've been able to translate what I like about even the feminine portraits and use those techniques with men, and it's worked fine.
Yeah.
As far as going back and looking at old pictures, to be honest with you, until I really got in with agencies, finding reliable male models has just not been possible. Most of the guys that, okay, so here's a real stereotype about men. If a guy is good looking, for definite, if he's been good looking since the age of about 12, he's probably completely useless by the age of 22.
Yeah.
Like completely unreliable. And
Yeah.
I don't mean not ugly. I mean like good looking, like people would turn when he walks past them in the street, 6'2", built,
Yeah.
whatever, but good looking. Generally speaking, you don't end up being a good person if you get told that your shit smells like cinnamon rolls your whole life. And I think that the first feature that we all human beings go to with kids is how they look. And, you reinforce, look how blue their eyes are. Look how, red their hair is or whatever. It's like you constantly dote on a feature or on a look.
Yeah.
And then that's all they've got. Ugly people like me, you have to develop some form of personality, which I failed to do, but I at least tried. I think now's the right time for me to do it. I think it's a good challenge. I've always liked going against the tide. And one thing that I really do like with photography, more than anything, than anything I've ever done, more than with music, more than with like cooking or anything like that, is handicapping myself.
Yeah.
And taking away what is a very viable tool. If I'm just to photograph like ridiculously good looking girls, no one's going to care if the photo's good anyway. Most of the time.
Yeah.
It's not going to stand out. People are just going to be paying attention to the girl. Girl isn't changeable to woman. I'm not being, degrading or anything. I'm not intending to be degrading. But across the board, if you can produce images of male models where you can get a guy to say that's a really cool shot, I feel like that's more of a compliment than people, some of the comments I've had on images in the past have made me feel disgusting. So
yeah,
and I don't even do stuff that's
kind of part of the thing though. It's because those images now with the platforms that they're just so open to a vast amount of people and so many different kinds of people, where even things like 10, 15 years ago we didn't have those kind of platforms, especially not to the level that we have them now. So it's definitely changed.
The interesting, I think, is that the platform changing has opened up how we respond to certain things. If I were going back 15 years, if a girl I knew posted a picture of herself online in a thong, it wouldn't be looked at as a good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If not that there was really the means to do that going back 15 years, but like, it's weird how the bigger the audience has got, the lower the threshold has got. That's the side of it. I've spent most of this year just being confused by social media.
Yeah.
And that's one of the sides of it that I haven't been able to get my head around is this idea that like it's worth giving up a significant portion of your dignity to have people you don't know tell you they like you without your dignity on.
Yeah. Well, I think that your male model portfolio is very strong. Definitely your portfolio is, I would say, the strongest that it's ever been, which is obviously a good thing. And the number of years that you've now been photographing, you should be at your strongest point. But I think you've got a very strong male model portfolio now.
I've been very fortunate this year to work with some really great guys with really great character and great look to their face.
There's quite a lot of mood in some of them as well. I think when you were talking to Carla, you were talking about the mood of an image and how you get the mood of an image and, the communication between the photographer and the model and everything. And you can tell in a lot of the photographs you've taken this year, the mood is, you can feel the mood. You can feel what that model was feeling at that time, especially when there's pictures of them holding Chica.
She's got to show him how to do it.
She is, she's that communication between you and the model.
Do you know what? That's been another big change for me as well, is when you're at home on your own and you've just got some editing to do, or you haven't even got editing to do, you shoot for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been guilty of. Probably one of the worst things you can do as a portrait photographer is shoot for the sake of it. Because not only will you probably not want to use the images, but because the other person will, they're now on the internet. And there's a lot of images that I've taken in the last 3 years that, Christ, I wish I could get them off the internet.
Yeah.
But they're out there and you just have to keep working and, make other stuff shine a little bit brighter and so on.
Yeah.
But having Chica, since we've got our lovely little puppy, I've been fine with, I'm not doing anything today. I'm going to take the dog for a walk for an hour and a half and take some pictures of her and put my attention on that, as opposed to, there's nothing going on. I'll go to the shop and get a cornetto.
Yeah. 2 please. So obviously, like I said, there's been quite a few changes this year and everything. So has there been anything positive happen that you didn't expect, or you didn't anticipate anything like it would happen sort of last year?
Yeah. There's been one big thing that's happened this year that's been really hard to quantify how much of a big deal it is.
Yeah.
And actually something I was thinking about pretty much this whole week is you.
Me?
Well, I set you a couple of I wouldn't say targets because it makes it sound like I'm your boss and I'm not your boss, but I sort of set you a couple of challenges this year for second shooting, and sort of, maybe started like November or October last year, whatever. But in the last year or so, some of the work that you've produced has just moved the wedding stuff to like another level for me. And it's, I've in the right way feel like I have to up my shit to make sure I can stay with you.
Aww.
And that's been really cool. It's really nice to it's nice to be pushed. That's really nice, because otherwise you get complacent. I think a lot of people are very good at being complacent. And
okay, well, I'm going to keep kicking your ass then, so you keep getting better.
Well, I think one of the things that you've been brilliant at this year is you've certainly gotten over your for the most part, you've gotten over your fear of people.
Yeah.
When you have a camera, which has been great because you have a wonderful personality, but when you have a camera in your hand, you tend to get quite shy and quite nervous and stuff. But the main thing really is, the style to which you're now creating images of like wedding sort of paraphernalia, shoes and jewelry and flowers and so on. It's just added like to now. I think back to weddings that we've done before you were doing that, and I just think, Christ, our stuff must have looked really different.
Yeah,
for not all the good reasons. Like I can't imagine now a wedding where we don't produce some of those really cool, almost like product shots that you do.
Yeah,
which I literally I remember throwing like a Pinterest board at you, and you just ran with it.
Yeah.
That was awesome. You just you took 5 or 6 images that I showed you, and you just kind of have built on it. That's been the most important thing to me, is the fact that you didn't just get to a point and you were like, cool, did it, and then you stopped. You've kind of kept going, and I see the enthusiasm on shoots as well now, which is really nice. Although I hate saying shoots about weddings, it's not what it is, but you know what I mean.
You see the enthusiasm in sort of my primary, when I'm the primary of those things. That's what you mean, because you're not shooting shoes and stuff like that. You're not shooting the bride's dress being put on. That's typically me. So
yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I didn't expect that. So I didn't expect what you didn't expect.
Nothing like making yourself laugh.
Yep, I did like to make myself laugh. Okay, so let's talk about your equipment.
Yeah,
because as we've said in the
what
podcast that you and I did,
before we get started on this is I have talked in the podcast about Fuji before. So I can't talk at major length really, because it's not much to talk about.
Oh, no. This is what I was going to say, is that we've really talked about it, and it has come up in other podcasts as well. So we don't need to.
I think probably the most important thing to talk about would probably be the fact that a couple of weeks ago I said to you, you want your Sony back, don't you? And you said yes.
Yeah, I do want my Sony back. I miss my Sony. The Fuji the Fuji's a nice camera.
The thing is I've been there with switching stuff up, and maybe it does what you want it to do, maybe it doesn't. And this is just a situation where, although you have produced some really cool stuff with the Fuji, you just feel like you're hitting that wall and you want the Sony, then we get you the Sony.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to. At the end of the day, it's a tool.
It is, yeah. It's a tool. It's what you feel comfortable with. I
find the majority of conversations about camera gear to be irritatingly tedious.
Yeah.
Because when the conversation is, this is better than this, I just know I'm dealing with someone that's going to struggle really hard to tie their own shoes.
Yeah.
This isn't better than that. There are, one of the things that does really get my arse up with camera gear and the way people approach it is confirmation bias on your own purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So you buy something, and then like we all do, you notice that there's a couple of things about it that you wish were different, you wish were a bit better.
Yeah.
And that maybe on your old camera could do something better, or you miss a particular feature or whatever. But you can't admit to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have to be able to justify your purchase. So what you do is, as a really, really clever, totally not transparent thing, is you start getting just ludicrously aggressively positive about your own stuff and putting down other people's stuff. And at the end of the day, like, since I switched from Canon to Fuji, I enjoy photography more. The camera isn't as good.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
The 5D Mark IV is a significantly better camera than the X-T3.
Mm.
And I'm sure that there's people out there that either own an X-T3 or whatever that would have a problem with me saying that, and would argue with me because, they've taken 25 pictures of their cat and they're amazed by how quick the focus, whatever. I took about 250 odd weddings on 5D Mark IIIs and Mark IVs. I know the insides and outsides of those cameras. I've smashed them. I've pulled them to pieces. I've run them into the ground. I've used those cameras to death. And I know what they can do and I know what they can't do. And what I'm currently going through with Fuji is the teething sort of era or section where you kind of try and figure out okay, this camera can't do this particularly well, but here's how we trick it into doing that particularly well.
Yeah.
You know, there's behaviors with the Fuji that honestly are driving me nuts, but it's just about figuring them out.
Yeah.
A camera has character. It's like a person. It's like you being married to me.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly what you would want, but you work to figure out how to enjoy what I am and how to accept what I'm not. And that's just how life is.
Yeah. So historically, with your Canon and everything, you couldn't live without your 135. That was like your lens. And it still sits in the cupboard in this office.
It's the only one I held on to.
The only one you held on to.
Yep.
So for years, like your go-to was that and your Canon camera. So now you've switched. What is the equipment that you now just can't live without?
I don't know if I'm there yet, to be honest. I'm noticing a couple of things that are quite interesting. I think down to the actual quality of the lens. With the Fuji, I'm madly in love with the 16 1.4. So sharp, such a cool, just such a cool lens to use. But it's a 24mm equivalent, and I wasn't really big on 24mm when I was on full frame, so it's unusual for me to want to go that wide. Whereas normally I'd want to be at that sort of 35mm equivalent.
Yeah.
I've actually not used that as much.
Yeah.
And I have been drawn towards the 50mm equivalent, which I really didn't like when I was on full frame. I would go quite a long way to avoid a 50mm.
Yeah, you've kind of done the opposite. Me and you kind of switched roles in that sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as like things being like I couldn't live without them, it's not the case. I think earlier this year, it's funny, like until I switched to Fuji, I didn't think I was going to switch to Fuji.
Yeah.
Like it literally was the day I switched. I was like, oh shit, this is happening.
I think I came home from work and you were like, yep, Canon stuff gone.
Literally what happened, no. What happened was you came home from work and I still had some of the Canon stuff, but you came home from work and I said, just so you know, I've switched to Fuji. And you hadn't even like put your keys down or anything like that.
That's like, oh, okay.
I'm not good at breaking news, to be honest with you. No, it's, you know what? In a year's time, I might switch to Sony. I might switch to Pentax. I might switch to Hasselblad. You know, we don't know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about using
kind of what you're enjoying doing, what makes you happy. And the thing is, as well, is if you don't try a bunch of this stuff, how are you going to know what suits you best?
Well, then on the subject of just being incredibly on PC for the sake of having no one like me at the end of this, I've always said they're all made by the same kids in a factory in the Far East.
Yeah.
You know, they're not made by like my grandmother lovingly next to a fire. She doesn't knit me a camera. So this idea of like you have to be so loyal to a brand it's just, excuse me, it's just so ridiculous to me. I don't know why brand loyalty is such a thing. I think it's just tribalism for capitalists, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't have that brand loyalty. I mean, there are pieces of equipment I have used that I have enjoyed using them so much. They have pumped so much chemical out of my brain when I've used them, like so much. What is it? It's not serotonin, is it? Serotonin?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. They've pumped so much endorphins. Whatever. They've made me feel so good when I've used them. Like I've enjoyed the use of them and the end product
It's a release of endorphins.
Right,
that's what you're getting.
Yeah, right. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's all it comes down to is just that piece of equipment did that thing. I mean, the 135 that I still have is broken. Yeah, the focus is broken. It's missing screws. It's beaten up. It looks like someone's wiped their nose on it. It's just not in a good place at all. But that lens in particular, that piece of equipment is like, you know, like jar heads. It's like my rifle. You know, for a long time, I got a lot of kills with that. And, you know, I have a bit of affinity with that particular piece of glass, not the brand.
Yeah.
You know, Canon's doing some fucking stupid stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Canon and Nikon are on a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. But it doesn't mean I don't like that lens all of a sudden. I'm not going to pretend that I never liked Canon or anything stupid like that.
Yeah.
And I also abhorrently can't stand when people tell other people what they should be using.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if like your love of Sony, you love it for the exact same reason I don't. but that works for you. And I can't be bothered to spend my life trying to convince people they should like something that they don't.
No, because to be honest with you, you're a dick if you do that. Not you personally, but
well, I would be a dick if I did that.
If you do
I've
that.
got other stuff going on. I've got a dog.
Okay, so let's sidestep equipment.
Yep.
Right. Your photographic inspirations from day one have changed to what they are today.
Absolutely.
And I can see over the course of the years why they've changed and how they've changed. So tell me why you're inspired by what you're inspired now. And like just the happy stuff. Like when you look at an image by a particular photographer, what is it now that makes you go, God, I can't wait to go photograph my next wedding, or I can't wait to photograph my next model shoot. You know, what is it that just kind of releases those endorphins?
I wish I hadn't said that now.
It's done.
Well, I started off my first, the video, there was a video on YouTube that was the reason I kind of started portrait photography at all. And it was, for the sake of this being on YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description of this particular video. It's a video by Emily Soto, who for the longest time was the baby Jesus to me. That was the pinnacle. That was who I was mad in love with, and I still absolutely love her work. She's changed quite significantly over the years, and I'm definitely more of a fan of her older stuff, which is, I'm pretty sure, is the most old thing you can say. Like, I prefer their older stuff. But she had some gorgeous images. Yeah, and she was
lovely.
But she was out of fashion when she was doing stuff that, and I've always liked that. I've always liked people that don't just do stuff because, you know, they're chasing trends. She was a bit of a trendsetter, I guess, in that she kind of was part of that movement of bringing like backlit 70s styled floaty feminine portraiture forwards.
Yeah. Like, everything was kind of all pretty.
Yeah, that was it. It was pretty.
And it was so pleasing. Like, you looked at one of her images and it made you smile.
One of the things I loved the most about Emily Soto, we really have not talked about this kind of stuff, but one of the things I loved the most about her work was that you didn't have to be a photographer to like it. I think there's something you get lost in when you become a photographer, when you work and you're always looking at work and you're always editing and, you know, you're kind of pixel peeping and you're checking the EXIF data on stuff. You kind of forget what it's like to just absorb an image for its intention.
So exactly what I say after you studied music theory and stuff like that, and you pick apart a song so much, and I'm just like, just listen to the song. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Don't pick it apart because you're racking your brain over something you don't need to.
You're trained to one of the problems, real tangent, but one of the problems of music is that there's only 12 words. You know, you got 12 notes, so everything is about how they relate to each other. It's not about the actual note. It's just about the intervals more than anything. And there's not really much left to do with music.
Yeah.
We've kind of done everything with it. That's why we've just started to add fucking noises that aren't even musical now, just for the sake of making something a bit different.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, I think we're going to hit a point where everyone realizes, yeah, that's kind of it with music. We've hit a point, and we should start treating all music the way that blues fans have treated the blues, which is like, yeah, we've heard it before, but we like it.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to criticize it for not being new because there's not going to be any new soon.
Yeah.
With photography, I think the problem is that photography breaks down into two sides. Really, one side is technical and most people focus on that. And when it comes to just enjoying an image, if you're paying any attention to the technical, you're not enjoying the image. And that's been hard for me.
Yeah. But you're right, though. Emily Soto stuff, you can just look at it and you don't have to break it down. They're pleasing images.
Well, I feel like I could show it to my mum, or I could show it to a random person and they would say, oh, that's really pretty. That's a pretty girl, or that's a really pretty photo, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like what lens was used, you know, like I don't feel like she invites the technical person to care.
Yeah.
I guess would be the way I would say it.
Yeah.
That's kind of evolved. And over the last 5 years, I guess, I mean, I remember having a conversation with Jeff Tolniemi, and he sort of put me on to some really interesting fashion photographers. And fashion photography is interesting, but not that interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by the way they can pull certain moods out of images and how they trick you with bad photos. Quite often, they use bad technique to stand out from all of the people that are chasing good technique, I guess would be the way I'd say it. He put me onto I think it's Koa Bui. This is the way it's pronounced, a Vietnamese guy. I think he's in California now. Very cool fashion photographer. Jeff Toniemi, he's a really, really cool fashion photographer. And from there, I chased on to Julia Kuzmenko, who's an amazing beauty photographer. And again, it's maybe not something I would do, but I can really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, you wind round, you find this person, you find that person. And at the moment, that person seems to be Akata Serge, and it has been for about 2 years. Every time she puts an image out, I'm in love with it. Wish that I could produce work.
What is it about her work that makes you feel like that?
One of the things is what I was talking about with the idea of how women should look, this kind of every model seems to want to look like everyone else. And she tends to photograph models in quite a raw way, quite a stripped back makeup. It's not massively overproduced. It's usually one light. For the sake of technicalities, it's a 40 to 50 mil range with the lens, which is quite unusual for headshots, especially. But she still manages to make it pretty. So you can tell that she understands her intangibles when it comes to shooting height and feel and emotion and expression. Yeah. I just think sometimes you have to stop breaking down what you like and realize that some stuff just stops you in your tracks and you should just enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, is that every time she puts an image out, I love it. She has a lot of the qualities of Peter Coulson.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people could do what he does.
Yeah.
But he's doing it.
Yeah. And also you can tell when people are inspired. I've seen people who are inspired by Peter Coulson.
Yeah.
And try and emulate his work and things like that. And they try and pull the same mood and stuff. And you think, oh, you've done a good job. But you can just tell.
Yeah.
And you just know when it is a Peter Coulson image.
You can tell, yeah. You know when it's his.
Yeah. There is just something else about it that...
You could get a prettier model, a nicer background, a more expensive camera, but you can't do what Peter Coulson does.
Yeah, there's something about it, isn't it?
It's the person behind it.
Yeah.
The most important part of the camera is the squishy bit standing behind it.
Yeah, because you can feel that mood through them. You can feel what the photographer was feeling and what they wanted as they took that picture.
Oh, yeah.
So I really like that. I
think you can quite often tell if you follow a person's work for a long time and you look at the expressions of models or subjects in general, unless they have a bit of a quota on what they're supposed to be producing, you can probably tell the mood of the photographer based on the mood of the people they're photographing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's that photographer, he's Russian, I think. I have him on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Always shoots, it's always window light to what's my left of the frame. Sean Archer.
Yeah. He's not called Sean Archer, obviously, but
yes, but
Sean
his
Archer.
But I mean, he's very, very popular. His work is, I love his work.
He's another one I've seen Irene Rudnick and a few others rip off.
Yeah,
and
they can't.
And you can't. It's just he has a certain way of doing things. He has access to certain types of models that are just different from the ones you have access to. And
the way he he primarily photographs women. I don't think I've ever seen.
I don't think I've ever heard someone say the word primarily so badly before. It sounded like you said primarily. Primarily.
Yeah, he only shoots women. I don't think I've ever seen a male.
I think once in a blue moon.
Yeah,
and it's a fitness model or something, I think.
Oh, okay. But he photographs women and his images are beautiful. He's got beautiful backdrops. The light is stunning.
Yeah.
And the light, how it contours the model.
Yeah.
And cuts them out from the background and stuff. And his editing is really, really, really nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, I've never seen a raw image of his and then compared it to an edited one, so I don't know how much editing has gone into it, but it doesn't look like, it's like he's done the bare minimal to it because they look so natural,
I think it's done more than you realise. I just think it's done well. I think you can push the envelope a bit more, but you have to be good at doing it.
Yeah. I think he's one of
One
those.
thing I'd say with Sean Archer and like your enjoyment of Sean Archer and his work and stuff, and I'm certainly a fan, not a huge fan, but I'm certainly there's a photographer I've tried to say his name in the past, and it's like Georgi Chenyadyev. I can never say it properly. Who at the moment is being ripped off left, right, and centre. Especially here in England, people are ripping off his work left, right, and centre. And there's a difference in inspiration. This is one thing that I think people get confused with, and it's the reason why they end up with a really muddled portfolio, is that you can be inspired by something and enjoy it without having to emulate it. That's, one of the things, like, I follow a lot of street photography accounts, I follow a lot of travel photography accounts, and I follow a hell of a lot of food photography accounts. But I don't feel the need to incorporate everything I see into everything I do, because if you do that, you're always just chasing something else. And sometimes things just don't mash together.
Yeah.
We're all an amalgamation of all the things we like, but at the end of the day, some things just don't mash together.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was just thinking as you were talking about it, I was actually just thinking about Joni Simon, the bite shot.
Is that her name?
Joni Simon,
Okay.
yeah. I really hope I've pronounced that correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's...
Yeah, Joni Simon.
I can't imagine it's hard to pronounce. But
No, but the bite shot is what she is on Instagram
yeah,
and the
that
YouTube.
She's a fantastic YouTuber and really cool. I mean, love her accent, and
Her accent is epic.
Yeah.
But I tell you what else I love about, I mean, I'll get to her work in a second, but I love her enthusiasm.
Oh yeah, she's positive soul.
So positive, so happy. When you click onto one of her videos, you instantly feel like, God, I'm going to enjoy this video. Even if and I'm not really a gear type of girl.
What's shaking, bacon?
I love it when she says that. But, even when she's talking about her gear, because she's done a few of those videos, I'm just like, oh my God, this makes me want this gear. And I don't even give a shit about the gear.
Yeah.
Because she's so positive,
Yeah,
so enthusiastic.
I do get the impression
with
with her, for definite. One thing I do get the impression of is that I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of her. I reckon she kicks some fucking ass.
Oh, hell yes.
Anyone that's like that positive, it's all confidence. And if they're confident, it means they're fucking dangerous.
Yeah. But
she's a cool girl though. She's got some great work.
Her work is beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's been one of my inspirations, her work. I've managed to incorporate her food photography and lay flats into mine. I absolutely love it. So it's nice when you get someone that you're inspired by and your inspiration changes over the course of your professional career. It's actually really nice because it shows an evolution in what you're liking, but also shows an evolution in your own work. So I think it's really cool.
I will explain, and we're not going to go on this tangent, but we, as in me and you, just for people listening, refer to flat lays as lay flats.
Oh, yes.
We say it the other way round. We always have done. I think anyone that's in a long-term relationship probably has a few things that they say wrong and you both say it wrong and you just kind of codepend on each other to say it wrong. For how many years do we call aviators navigators? Right?
All the time.
So it's just one of those things. It almost becomes like an inside joke.
We have our own
could
language.
Correct it, but you're not going to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No, that's cool. So, right, this relatively quick. So your thoughts on portraiture versus weddings as a professional career, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on them? Portraitures, weddings?
I don't know if I could work entirely in portraiture. One of the things I love the most about weddings is the fact that there isn't such a thing as a wedding photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to kind of offset the parts of the day that you don't enjoy by being a different photographer for the other parts. I really enjoy photographing details. That's something I really enjoy doing. I enjoy bride prep quite a bit because it's about getting to know people and kind of learning the dynamics. It's a bit of a people game.
Yeah.
Couple photos, I enjoy those. Most of the time I enjoy those. Sometimes you get couples that don't click with each other, which sounds silly because it's at a wedding, but when there's a camera involved and there's a third person, it can create an awkwardness and a tension.
Yeah.
That no matter how hard you work to, you can't always sort of defer that and make them feel comfortable as hard as you can possibly try. There are just some people that are just far too aware of you. But there are parts of the day that I don't enjoy, and it depends on the wedding. It depends on how long I've been doing it that year. And there's, certain parts that wear down on me. And I think everybody that, if they were honest, would say that there are parts of wedding photography if they're a wedding photographer, there are parts of their job that they don't enjoy.
Yeah.
But you get to offset that by focusing on the stuff that you do enjoy and experimenting with that. And that side of it, I really enjoy. If I was just doing portraits, I think you'd hit a run where you just had like 3 or 4 sessions in a row where either things didn't go right or you didn't click or whatever. And then it becomes a job, not a career. And then it becomes a problem.
Do you think if you were doing portraiture more often or maybe that instead of weddings, do you think that after say 10, 15 shoots or whatever, or maybe even less, that it just repeats itself?
Yeah.
I think you become stale.
I think you become cookie cutter. And I don't think that's even a particularly controversial thing to say. I look around at people I know that do portraiture for a living, and they do like family portraiture or they whatever, and they tend to just kind of go through the motions, and it's just the same thing over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that in generalities. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's hardly exciting, and it's not something that would make me want to get out of bed every day and have to work for myself and have to go through months where you don't have much money and go through other months where the money's suddenly flowing like mad. And
yeah,
I think for the sake of being self-employed and the lack of security you have, which is a very underrated part of it, you go without sick days, you go without, you can't fob off something because you don't want to do it. You have to be there. That's hard. And if the job wasn't particularly inviting, and it was like just a constant stream of doing the same thing, I think I'd just get an office job.
Yeah.
Or I'd become a cleaner or something.
Yeah. So you like where it is where you've got a bit of a balance of both. And it's something that you're going to keep that balance for a little while, definitely at least.
Yeah. And you can take what you learn from one into the other one. And, I can try out jokes on portrait sessions and then, see how they're received and then see if they would work when I'm talking to 60 people at a wedding or whatever.
Actually, you test yourself out on the model. I come home, you then trial run it with me.
I really don't like that sentence by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, you test yourself out on the model is a horrendous sentence.
Oh, God. Everybody, how do people read things into... Yeah, no, that's not what I meant. You test your jokes out on a model.
Yeah.
I come home and then you trial that joke with me to see how it goes. You're like, will it work for a wedding? I
think there's been a few times where I've tried a joke out at a wedding for the first time.
Yes.
And probably shouldn't have. I'm still proud of the fact that I've got like the moth joke, which I tell when we've got a full group and someone wants to go to the toilet and you've got to kill a couple minutes. That I have a joke that I can make last 25 minutes if I need to.
This is true, yeah.
Like I think that's quite clever to have that in the pocket, and it's worked. I mean, we did a wedding in Brighton last year, and we had like I believe there was like either disabled or I think it was a disabled person needed like to go to the toilet and they needed some assistance and so on. And it was quite a length of time. We just got everyone lined up and then they needed to go.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, so I've got to keep all these people entertained. And, especially as an introvert, it's very hard to talk to 70 people for a particularly long amount of time. So it's always nice to have stuff in the bag that at least is going to be a bit funny.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some jokes that have just fallen flat on their face.
So, okay, that one didn't work. Right, well, we'll just move on then, guys.
Yeah. We've had a couple where I haven't even had a chance to talk before, someone's decided that they've got a better punchline or they've got to try and be funny or they've got to try and have a go at me, and you lose the group a little bit. But that's the nature of the game, and you just reset and you go on to the next one.
Yeah.
But it's good to have something in the pocket for when you need it.
You're going to need some new ones for 2020,
Yeah. The problem is when you do a wedding and there's people at that wedding whose wedding you photographed. And it's like, I can't use the same jokes because there's literally 2 people here that know these jokes.
Yeah.
And then,
so you've really got to be on your game then.
I'll be honest with you. I just go,
No, you don't. You always have something else.
I try and always have something else. The worst is, I think one of my goals for 2020 is to try and work an Anthony Jeselnik joke into a wedding, which is going to be really hard.
Is that guy on Netflix that you made me listen to that you said is quite harsh?
Yes. And so one of my favorites of his jokes was him saying, or when I was a teenager, you know, I'd beg and beg and beg for a motorbike, and my mum would say, no, you can't have a motorbike. You know, and I was so desperate to get a motorbike, and my mum said, you can't have a motorbike. And then one day my uncle died in a motorbike accident. So my mum said I could have his bike.
Dude.
And I'm not saying that joke, but I definitely
that kind of joke.
I want to try and work something like that in. I think it's a challenge, you know. It's the right type of wedding. Let's put it that way. There are some weddings where you can get away with certain things.
This is true. You have to test the waters first.
Yeah, the last wedding was great for Arab jokes. We got a lot of Arab jokes in.
I don't understand how you've managed to fit so many Arab jokes into so many weddings.
It's been a long process.
And you should see the look on those brides' faces. Some of them are like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that to you. And I'm like, I'll get him back later. Don't worry.
It doesn't sound as bad as what you're making it sound. Like on the day, it's generally received well. And what a lot of people lose and don't realize.
This is true. It is generally received well.
But what a lot of people don't realize is when you make a joke that makes, like if I make a joke that makes me look like a dick, that can be helpful.
Yeah.
There can be times where it's helpful for me to make me, like, one of the things that I find amazing is the amount of people that think that a good joke is when they are horrible to someone else. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're shocked when people don't see the value of their amazingness. Whereas if you can bring yourself down, especially if you are one person speaking to 60, you can look like you think you're quite self-important.
Yeah.
So if you can make a joke that brings you down, quite often that's helpful, especially with keeping people on side. And,
yeah,
you know, people can then, you know, you get the odd guy that's had a couple of drinks and then he comes over and he's got an extra punchline for how much of a twat you are. And you kind of like, yeah, you know what, if it keeps you on side, I'll take that.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's an underestimated part of the job. It's just sometimes being able to not make yourself look good for the sake of keeping a group together.
I've actually found that, especially when we're doing couple photos, that couples love it when me and you banter with each other and when we're taking the piss.
Well, you say that, but last year you got annoyed at me about it. We had a conversation about it and you were like, I don't know why you need to keep saying certain things. And I said to you, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I say at a wedding to you because it's not real.
Yeah.
You know, we're caricatures on the day. You know how I actually feel about you. I've said lovely things about you.
Yeah.
But if it keeps people from focusing on their own insecurity, if it keeps people from focusing on their own awkwardness and it makes them sort of have fun and you can get a laugh out of them and I can photograph that laugh, then that's what matters. The most, it's, you know, at the end of the day, if I was doing videography, I think I'd be completely boned because you wouldn't be able to have any audio of anything that I was saying at any point. But there are photos that I've got where people are like, oh my God, they're so in love. It's so romantic. And it's like, yeah. I mean, you don't really want to know what was being said at the time, but they do look like they're in love in the picture. So it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
The funny thing for me is when we do have a videographer there and they've got a mic and I have like about a 50 millisecond moment where I go, I can't do what I normally do. And then I just do it anyway. And it's just their problem.
Yeah.
You know? So one of the things that's quite frustrating as a wedding photographer is the amount of work you do for other people. Yeah. You know, you set stuff up for videographers to make themselves look good. And you don't get a thank you 90% of the time. You don't get any help out of them.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a couple really good videographers, but we know I've had a lot of dicks.
Yeah. I can actually count 4 videographers. 3 we've had this year that have been very nice and this is just my opinion, but can actually video a wedding and actually produce really nice stuff afterwards. And then one a couple years back who was sort of brand new. It was like, I think his second wedding. He was very young.
Oh, this was in Milton Keynes, right? Yeah. Bedfordshire way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was lovely.
Really lovely guy.
You know, do you know why he was lovely? Because he didn't act like he knew it all.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he would ask questions and if you had a question, he would answer you. You know, most of the time conversations, I think this might be a male thing, but most of the time the conversations you have between men is just, they're trying to seem like they're the best at what they do and you're just not. If you're amazing at what you do, you're not talking to me. And if
Yeah.
I'm amazing at what I do, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Like I'd be photographing Prince Harry's wedding.
Yeah.
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like you can be brilliant at what you do. You know, you could be very good. You could be whatever, but you're not like above a human being.
Yeah.
So just settle down, wind your neck in, talk like an adult. And if you need some help with something, ask. And if you can offer help, then offer it.
Yeah.
One of the things that bugs me the most is like posing couples. It's taken a long time to develop a way that I pose couples. And then you have people that either interrupt to take over and then don't know what to do. And it's like, cool, you just killed the flow. You know, you've killed the option for me to get anything out of this. You've just absolutely destroyed it for the sake of you feeling like a big un because you stepped in and made sure that we all know you're still there.
Yeah.
If you want to, you know, I always give the option. I always like, well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to interchange? Do you want me to run it? Do you want to run it? It's not like I take over.
Yeah.
But, you know, like the worst I think we had was Wasing Park. We've had a few terrible ones, but I think one of the, I don't know, it's actually quite a tough one. Wasing Park was bad because she was just so inept as a human being.
She was incredible. It was her mannerisms.
She was
more
one
than
of the rudest
anything.
people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Ever. And I went to one of the most disgusting schools I can think of. And, you know, no one was nice to each other. And we were all nicer to each other than she was to like you and me.
Yeah.
You know, she's the only woman I've ever sworn at a wedding.
Yeah.
You know, where she
Yeah.
was so rude to you and I was so angry. And I just, you know, I had a private word, but it weren't a polite one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, clicking at people and telling people that they have to get out of her way. You know, what happened, one of the things that set this off, I mean, she'd already pissed us off all the way through the ceremony, which is a story unto itself, but we get 100, it was 105 people, if I remember exactly,
Yeah.
because of the amount of people that could fit in the church.
Yeah.
And you got 105 people in a very windy, not particularly great weather day lined up for confetti in like no time. You did brilliantly, which you generally do. It's like a standard. And she said to you, as I was getting the couple ready to come through, she didn't come and talk to me, despite the fact that I was the photographer, I was with the couple. She said to you that basically I need to get out of the way so that I don't show up in her video because she wanted to plonk a tripod down and that it was my job to work around her.
Yeah.
And the way she said it to you and the things that she said, I don't think they bear repeating, but it wasn't polite.
Yeah.
And you told me about this.
I had a go at her, came and told you.
You put your piece in, you come and told me. And I said to her, what's the problem? And she said, I don't want you guys showing up in my video. I said, okay, so why didn't you set up the confetti line then? How you wanted it? And she's like, well, you were already doing it. I was like, so we're doing it my way then.
Exactly.
So it's your problem at this point. If you want to be polite, if you want to come to me and say, look, is there any chance you could shoot long so that we can both get this? I don't want to walk because I'm lazy and I don't own any actual professional equipment. All I know how to do is stick a tripod down and point it at a thing. And I call myself a videographer, even though there's nothing artistic about that at all.
Yeah.
If you come and talk to me and say, look, is it okay if I tripod this? Fine.
Yeah.
But when you talk to my wife, especially, but when you talk to us like we owe you something, like we're there to work for you, you like with all the will in the world, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
I think we need to talk about something positive. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going negative. It's my nature.
No, it's not your nature. It's not your nature at all. Okay, so, right, I want you to tell me 3 good things about camera clubs.
Whoa, this is not the day. 3.
3.
They're generally local. The memberships aren't exorbitant. And there's usually quite a lot of parking outside.
You're such a dick.
Is that 3 positive things?
I will take it.
So I'll tell you something. I had a thought yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get my mum. I'm going to try and get my mum to come and do a podcast after her experiences with the camera club that she was at. I want to try and get her in to come and do a podcast. What I'd say
Chica
is,
will need to be on her lap.
yeah, I think.
Oh, hello, baby.
I think. I think it would be a very interesting chat because she went through some stuff, especially back when, you know, open sexism was still currently a a sadly common event,
Yeah.
as opposed to now where how someone sits on a train is sexist.
Yeah.
Stupid shit like that. She actually suffered, from what I remember of the story she told me, we haven't talked about this for years, but, being talked down to and kind of ignored and brushed to one side because she wasn't in with the clique and, the big boys that run it and all of that stuff. I can't remember all the stories, so it'd be a fascinating discussion because I'll relearn a lot of stuff. And obviously she had the dark room in our garden shed and, she was into it for quite a while. So it'd be quite an interesting conversation. But, I joined this camera club back in September with the intention of not judging something before I've sort of walked a mile in its shoes, so to speak. And as sad as it is to admit, I am starting to get the impression that the stereotype about camera clubs being very cliquey, I'm sure people can probably read between the lines when I say very dusty.
Yes.
In the sense of it being sort of, well, this is the way it's always been.
Yeah.
We don't need to do anything different. Last week there was a talk, not last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a talk. And one of the things that was brought up was that we all remember where we were during the moon landing. I'm 31. I'm like,
you weren't even thought about.
I think I was 21 years off being born.
Yeah.
Or no, 19 years off being born. So, it's just the mentality seems to be that you are only allowed to be under 50 if you're in the club.
Yeah.
If you're in the club, not in the camera club, but you're in the club. I
suppose so. It would be interesting to speak to people from other camera clubs. Yeah. Because obviously your experience and your assumptions about it before you became a camera club member have now, they've been proven to be true in some respect.
Well, I wouldn't say they've been proven to be true, but I am starting to observe things. I went tonight, I left halfway through. I offered to do something tonight. It was shot down fairly quickly. They have a portrait special interest group. Whilst I don't particularly want to be doing portraits with this club, that's not the main thing I want to be doing. I've asked on 3 separate occasions for that information and not been given it.
Yeah.
You're kind of, I think you'd be daft if you relied on the river for your fishing when the tide is high, or not river, you know what I mean? When the water's high, when there's a lot of water, when there's a lot of fish, to say, well, we don't want those fish. We only want certain types of fish. And then starve when the water disappears and when times aren't as prevalent. And I think it appears to me that right now that camera club is particularly well stocked with people.
Mm-hmm.
And unless there are marked changes in medical technology, they're not going to be members in 30 years.
Yeah.
And, what's next? There's myself, there's someone in there who's done this podcast, Jack, who's 5 years younger than me. I can't remember. And he's an afterthought because he's not, grandfathered in, for want of a better term. It's, I don't know. I'd just like to see it be a more accepting place. I'd like to perhaps to just see a younger camera club. Not because I think younger people know it all, but because I think that I think I've seen more young people want to help others learn than I have older people in this kind of setting. That's the one thing I would say.
So then maybe that's something that, I'm not saying you specifically, but maybe that's something that you need to do.
I don't think so. I think the internet, the way the internet is, people aren't going to frequent social events when they could be online. That's the main problem. And when you have, we had an event tonight where it was a particular type of shooting. I'm not going to go into it because there's no point in going into it. The details are completely unimportant. But when you have a situation where you have a fairly decent number of people that either know nothing about that subject or are extremely new to photography, no one's giving out information.
Yeah.
No one's, I think there's like 12, 16 committee members at this camera club. It makes up about 18 to 20% of the total number of people that could even turn up. Not that they all even turn up.
Yeah.
So there are a significant percentage of the people in there, but no one's, kind of grabbing the bull by the horns and just filling in some information. If people want to talk about depth of field and how they could increase or decrease it, it's good for us to understand, the different reproduction sizes as well as the focal lengths, as well as your distance to subject, as well as your aperture. Not just there's a thing, photograph the thing. Yeah. And when it doesn't work, go, oh, sorry, it didn't work.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that as a club? I think I'm expecting it to be like a constant ongoing workshop. And what it actually is a social meetup.
Yeah.
Where you have to already be a member of the clique.
Yeah.
That's, I probably sound like I'm being quite harsh. But I genuinely want...
those are just your feelings towards it.
I genuinely want to enjoy it. I've paid money. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I've turned up for one and I'm just criticizing everybody. I have made a point of extending an olive branch on several occasions to a moderately polite sort of brush off.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's because I'm a skinhead. Maybe it's because I don't look like the kind of person that should be going there. I don't know. Maybe it's because I use 4-letter words.
Yeah.
I don't use them in a camera club, but maybe whatever.
Yeah, it could be any number of reasons.
The problem could entirely be me and that I just don't get it.
Yeah.
But I don't think is going to be gotten by people in the future. And some of these institutions are 100 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't see an enormous wave of young people coming in. And the ones that I have seen, and young is an is an overstatement when it comes to me. I'm not young. But I don't see an enormous wave of young people coming in. And the ones that are coming in aren't exactly, welcomed, as Scott Stapp would say, with arms wide open. It doesn't appear to be about like kicking them out. It's just about not letting them in.
Yeah. I mean, one of the positives from the camera club that I can see for you is that you were introduced to that astronomy photographer.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, I cannot remember his name.
It's Alan Wallace.
There we go.
I might have got that wrong.
But you then showed me his YouTube channel.
Yeah, he's got some really cool work and he's been to some fascinating places.
It's really cool that you've been able to be introduced to something like that. So I take that as that's a nice thing to come from.
But I have a YouTube premium account.
Yeah.
And I have, in fact, Google just gave me a present for the amount of time I've been a member or something.
Yeah.
I don't need to pay 30 quid a year to find one YouTuber that I might like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm on YouTube a lot.
Yes.
There's a pretty good chance I'll find people.
You will find them eventually, yeah.
When I took an interest in Fuji, all of a sudden I found like 300 YouTubers that were all using Fuji. So I don't know if I'd see that as much of a positive. My main problem is I'm old. Mentally, I'm old. I always have been. I've never been one really good at hanging around with people my own age.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that I am judged based on my external appearance.
Mm.
I mean, it was said, there was a comment tonight that there's the potential that people might not like the fact that I would call myself a professional photographer.
Yeah.
Now, the problem being I am a professional photographer. Whether you like it, whether you right now, scoff at me saying that, deal with it. I've paid my taxes for the last 5 years. I've been working nonstop for the last 5 years. I've got 2 years booked out in the diary. I do this as a job. I pick up a camera, I take pictures, and people pay me to take pictures.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And that potentially that's a problem.
Yeah. But then, I mean, that is something that's still quite prevalent across lots of industries. I mean, I am still very, very young for a home manager. Very young. Because most people expect home managers.
For people that don't know, a home manager is someone that works in care.
Yeah, I was about to explain that. most home managers who work in care homes are 50s, 60s, you know,
and there's a certain level of like,
older.
you're there, like you inherited it or it's part of the family business or something stupid like that. When the truth is you're there because you're good enough to do the job and age is literally a number. It doesn't actually mean shit.
I mean, I was very, very young when I got it. But even now, sort of 6-7 years on, I'm still youngish for it. And people that are outside of the industry look at me and you can tell when I introduce myself, they're looking at me like, no, you're not the one that's in charge, and they get that preconception about me. And it's the same in all industries. You're not ready. You're not at that age where you have the experience enough to be a professional in that field.
Yeah, which is fine. If I was, do you know what? If I was lauding it, if I was like walking in every week with like one of those dickhead polo shirts with my name on it that like has my phone number, you know, like DJs or at weddings or whatever. If I was doing that, then fine. If I was bringing it up constantly, then fine. The one person there that week on week on week has made a point of seeking me out to sit next to me brings it up.
Yeah.
And all he brings up is, are you shooting any weddings this week? That's what he says every week.
Yeah.
And I'll answer it.
Yeah.
No, yes, I've got 2 or whatever. It's not like I go in and I'm like, what's up, bitches? Who's got 2 thumbs? What's got 2 thumbs and makes money taking pictures? Me, motherfucker. I don't go in like that. I go in, I listen to the people talking, I ask questions. I'm fascinated by like the way judges interpret things. And I'm actually fascinated just by how people interpret things. I think we talk about judges at camera clubs like they're a separate entity, and they're not. They're just a person. But I genuinely don't want to not enjoy it. That's a really important point. I joined this to socialize, to meet new people, to get to know the area, and because I want to improve on a couple of areas of photography that I don't actually do very often.
Yeah.
And so far, it just feels like maybe I'm not welcome. That's a little bit of the feeling I'm getting. But once again, we've managed to turn this into a negative.
And I really wasn't, and I really was positive. Like, tell me 3 good things.
It's my superpower. I can turn anything into a negative.
Oh, you stop it. Right. I want your goals for 2020. I want
positive.
3 positive goals for 2020. The second you dip to negative, I'm going to kick you under the table.
Okay. I definitely want to expand on my vocabulary of couple portraiture in terms of like their posing and stuff.
Yeah.
Right now I feel like we've got a decent small cycle that we can work through.
Yeah.
But I would definitely like to improve sort of the vastness of what we can do with a bride and groom. Street photography is a big thing for me this year. I don't know if you said this has to be specific to weddings.
No, it's not specific to weddings, just for you.
I would like to at least put together something of a portfolio of street photography for nothing other than myself.
Okay.
Starting with, we'll be in Washington and New York. And then wherever you tell us we're going later on in the year, we'll be there, and I'll try and do a similar sort of thing. That would be great to sort of build up something of a portfolio.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it at the moment, but I would definitely like to work hard to get better at it. And then thirdly, Jesus.
Put you on the spot, didn't I?
I don't know if I have 3.
You're just going to make one up now.
Yeah, why not? Probably, do you know what? Probably to do a little bit more in the way of like themed shoots or stylized shoots when it comes to portraiture. I'll tell you one thing I'd love to do a little bit of, and now people can do it and say they had the idea, but it's to do some stuff that's kind of inspired by film.
As in?
By like movies.
As in, oh, okay.
Yeah, but maybe not like, you know, like put some dickhead in like Joker costume and have them prance around on stairs and call myself an artist, but more, you know, take like the essence of what James Dean was.
Yeah.
Or what Steve McQueen was, and get, you know, an old Mustang.
Yeah.
And stylize a model that fits the bill and kind of do a stylized shoot like that, or
okay.
You know, just that kind of thing.
Sounds quite cool.
Yeah, I think that would be quite fun. And obviously then you've got like the chaos theory of will it come out the way you see it in your head, which it never does. And yeah, I think to probably put more into pre-production on shoots rather than people turn up and I kind of go, let's see what we can make of this.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun.
Okay. I like that. Those are 3 good goals.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a podcast at the end of next year and see how well you did.
Oh, I don't know if I'll be alive.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
Look, I've told you, you're getting to... Yeah. You're getting there. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're going to bring this to a close.
Uh-huh.
Now, I've got 3 things to say to you.
Why is it all 3?
I like 3 for some reason tonight.
Okay.
It's better than 4.
Okay. 3 things.
3 things.
Yeah.
It is a quick fire round.
Uh-huh.
And
Didn't realise we were doing rounds.
oh, this is.
I've missed out.
You've missed out. Yeah, this is a quick fire round.
Okay, so this is the quick fire round.
Quick fire round.
Yeah.
I'll give you 3 things. The first 2, you're going to tell me 1 word.
Right.
Okay. And the third one is 1 sentence.
Oh, Christ. Okay.
Okay.
Am I allowed commas?
Okay.
Are you saying I talk a lot? Is that what you're getting at here?
No. I just think
I know I talk a lot.
I know.
It's very rude to tell the whole world that, though.
No, if I thought that, I'd just say it. Excuse me. Okay, so favourite model you photographed this year? Apologies, this may be 2 words because I got a name.
I think in terms of just look, there's a guy from BMA called G-Day.
G-Day.
Yeah, and he just straight up reminded me of Lenny Kravitz, who I think is the fucking best looking man in the world.
Oh, yeah, I remember the one. Yeah.
So that's not 1 word, but G-Day.
Yeah. Very cool model.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Really cool guy. And we finished the shoot by watching UFC fights.
Boom.
And he was talking about how much you like John Jones. He's a cool guy. Very cool guy.
You got some beautiful images from that. Really nice images from that.
Yeah.
Favourite podcast?
I would probably say Charlotte.
And now I want to know why.
Because I don't know if she'll hear this, but I love her. Like, genuinely as a person, I absolutely love her. I think she's a wonderful person. And I think what I love the most about Charlotte is the fact that she's basically kind of a female version of me, which is why we butted heads so much.
Yeah.
But she's not let horrible people change her.
Yeah.
She's evolved as a person. She's a wonderful human being, but she hasn't let the horrible people make those decisions. She's become who she is from strength, not from weakness.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would have the opportunity to probably talk to her again.
Yeah.
And it was so cool I messaged her and just, you were waiting to be left on scene. And I messaged her and said, I really want to get you in. I actually said to her, I need you to be the first one.
Yeah.
For this run of podcasts. You need to be number 1. And she was wonderful. And we had Nando's afterwards. I mean, you can't really argue.
Oh yeah,
good old Nando's.
I actually am sad that I was at work that day because I haven't seen Charlotte in so long.
I can probably convince her to come back. I reckon. With
Charlotte, if you're listening to this, come to ours and we will have pizza.
Yeah, that was a good way of pretty much
sold it already.
Yeah, pretty much just bring her in based on food.
Yeah. Okay. Last one.
This is a sentence, even though the
at
other
the
two
most
were
it can be a sentence. Yeah. 1 change for 2020
for me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go back to working with nothing but people that are far more talented than me. I always need to be the least talented person in the room and always the hardest working, and things will get better.
That's beautiful. I love it. And that is everything.
Are you going to do the sign off? You're supposed to ask me what my social medias are.
Oh my God, I'm so bad at this.
Yeah.
So if you tell everyone.
Where can people find you?
Where can people find you?
So on Instagram, I am at Kris Karl Photography and I'm at Kris Karl Weddings. If you're interested in wedding work, I have a portraiture page on Facebook, which is Kris Karl Portraiture, and Kris Karl Wedding Photography, I believe is the name of my, it might just be Kris Karl Weddings, is the name of my wedding page on Facebook. My 2 websites are kriskarl.com, which is where you'll find all my portraiture. You'll also find lists for workshop dates that I will be doing in 2020. And if you go also on kriskarl.com is my blog where you can read about my thoughts on only photographing male models from now on. And all of my wedding work can be found at kriskarlweddings.com.
I think you're one of the few people that actually use your websites.
Do you know what? That's been seriously true. The amount of people I'm like, you don't have a website.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, what do I say?
Well, you just feel weird that you do have a website then. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, you know, you're just up there. It's all good. Anyway.
Well, this has been fascinating. I hope I haven't, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember much of what I've said because I've had
He's
a few
so
drinks.
drunk.
Yeah,
I just need everyone to know he's so drunk right now. I've been staring at his face now for however long we've been talking. He's so drunk.
I am toasty. I am dangerously toasty. But no, it's been fun. It's been interesting. I hope I wasn't bad.
Okay, let me quickly to end this then.
Yep.
I'm going to critique you as the
guest.
As a guest,
Oh,
and
wow,
then you
that's
critique
nice.
me as a host, okay?
Okay.
Literally like 30 seconds.
Right.
You answered my questions, you were to the point, and you didn't act like you were drunk the whole way through.
Right.
That's all good.
Sounds like an exit interview.
So how was I as a host? Because
you botched the intro, you botched the outro.
Hey, you didn't even prep me on the outro. You only prepped me on the intro, and I
How many of
botched
these
that so many
There's
times.
16 podcasts on this series, not including this one, and you've listened to every single one, so you
Dude.
know what happens at the end.
Dude, don't.
I'm not done. No, you were good. I obviously not knowing what you were going to ask me is a little bit dangerous because having had a drink and not being completely all about myself right now, I might have dangerously said stuff that I shouldn't say, which I hope I didn't. But
See, now you know what it feels like to be on the other end, where people will say to you, Kris, what are we going to talk about? I need a list.
well, I'll tell you
me.
what. I'll tell you what I am going to give myself praise for one thing,
Yeah.
is I might be the only person that's been on the Kris Karl photography podcast that's spoken into the microphone.
It's been really cool. I have learned a lot, and I think I want to host again.
Yeah, you can. What I'll do is I'll get someone in, you can host it, and I won't even be here.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And then I can just listen to it and critique.